Alright, what's up y'all, LakerFan here. As actually about to title today's video, here to rank all the shooting badges and tiers in NBA 2K23 for Season 2, so I hope y'all enjoy. If you do, for to drop a like, sub if you're new, turn on noties, all the good stuff, and like always, try to one to 2,000 likes. So, to start us off, as always, I want to explain to anybody who's new to the channel, text color is going to indicate the Season 1 ranking. As you can see, for things like slippery off ball, this is in the E tier, because the purple matches up with purple. We don't have a D tier. Everything that was in green is going to be C, yellow B, and then so on and so forth. The one that I don't have colored though is going to be volume shooter. This is in the don't know tier for Season 1. I didn't want to misinform anybody with this, so I just didn't choose to rank it for any of these letters or anything like that. I literally just put it in don't know. So we're now here to redistribute everything and just give my opinions on it, so I hope y'all enjoy. So to get straight into this, like I said, volume shooter is going to be the one we start off with. This is going to be moving into the C tier as its first initial ranking, and I truly do think this is a decent point guard badge. It's nothing other than that though, and even at that, it's more of an accessory badge. It's something that obviously the more shots you get up, the more you're going to be able to make your shots, green them, whatever the case may be. Obviously in this year's game, it's mostly just greens that go in, pretty much nothing else. So that's what we'll also talk about with Green Machine as well. But like I said, volume shooter, the more you keep on shooting, the easier it's going to be to make shots. With that in mind though, it's very rare that a lot of people even get up 5+ 3-pointers a game in the park anymore, let alone Pro-Am. It is a little bit more doable, I would say, to maybe just get more shots up. But even at that, Pro-Am is looking a whole lot more like it's the rim run, kind of inside, well, not inside point guards, but people that can actually drive and are dunking and laying the ball up a whole lot, honestly. And I don't know, personally, I just don't think volume shooter is anything more than an accessory badge. Two things to say in favor of volume shooter though. One is going to be that it's very cheap as far as applying it to your build, aka it's more of a tier 1 badge versus a tier 2 or 3. So it's pretty much always going to be a tier 1, which makes it very easy to put on your build for the early badges where you can't really unlock any of the tier 3s at all. And on top of that too, it's a pretty good 1v1 badge. So obviously, the more shots you put up, like I said, the more the shots are going to go in. But for 1v1, it makes a whole lot more sense to do that because you are the only one taking the shots. Now, it doesn't work for layups. It doesn't work for dunks, anything like that. So just keep that in mind. But nonetheless, if you are playing 1v1, it's very likely you end up at least shooting a couple shots if you are a shooter at all. And obviously, if you aren't, then it doesn't matter. So this is where we're going to be putting volume shooter, first badge in the C tier. Next up, we have slippery off ball. This can be staying in the E tier. I'm not a huge fan of the badge. I think you can definitely spend your shooting badge points somewhere else way more reliably. And for inside builds, opposed to last year where you would get one shooting badge off rip by default, in this year's game, if you have 0 shooting badges, you just stay with 0 shooting badges. So personally, I don't think there's any use for this badge. I do see, like, obviously off-ball movement sometimes where people can dex around pretty solid. Obviously, the adrenaline burning is a problem, and slippery off-ball does not solve that problem. I saw a comment talking about that in a different video, and I tried it out. My boys tried it out, and it did not work at all for stopping the burning of adrenaline. Them dudes were still getting burnt after, like, 2 or 3 cuts, and obviously they're out of bars. So it doesn't work for that. Just keep that in your mind, obviously. And as far as the movement ability, it doesn't really improve it a whole lot, if you ask me. I feel like off-ball movement is plenty fine this year's game, aside from the fact that it burns adrenaline. So when you're moving around or cutting or doing any types of kind of dexing, so to say, the moves are still good. It's just that the adrenaline definitely hurts. But again, that doesn't really solve anything. So I have slippery off ball staying in the E tier. I think there's plenty better badge points you can use for your shooting, and I'm not a huge fan of it. Speaking of badges I'm not a huge fan of, we have guard up coming in at the D tier. This is one that literally, in my opinion, doesn't work the way it should and doesn't work the way it's supposed to. This should be so much better of a badge than it actually is. This year's game, it's so easy to get contest on the quote-unquote ghost contest. That's what me, all the comp heads, all them dudes in Pro-Am and stage and stuff like that call it. The ghost contests are essentially if you just run at the offensive player and don't put a hand up and don't jump or anything like that. You literally just run at him, or you're standing directly underneath him as he shoots the ball. You still get amazing contests without even like putting a hand up or anything like that. And that's what guard up is supposed to do. It's supposed to negate those contests where they don't get a hand up and they don't properly contest a shot. And then you're supposed to be able to just make them better through that. And I think if guard up was good and they actually made it usable in that sense, you actually would have a good like situation with the game. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm never in favor of helping the offense, but in this game they probably could use that quite a bit, obviously. And even with that situation, especially with the fact that the badge, that's its only use, is to only do stuff like that to prevent the bad contest from contesting, I think this could definitely use a buff, personally. If this could find its way into the C or B tier in the next list just off them buffing it, I think that'd be a really good idea. But again, some people don't like the idea of gameplay being changed, so fair enough, it is what it is. But nonetheless, I'm just telling you how it is right now. Guard up is very bad. It's not a very good badge at all, yet it should be. It should be good for something, but it's just not. All right, next up we have amped. This is gonna be moving from the C tier to the B tier, which is saying a lot because I actually moved a lot of shooting badges down in this list as far as like the power displacement. I just think the one that is S tier is so much better than everything else, and A tier is still really good too. So a lot of badges are moving down in this list. However, amped is actually moving up. So this badge is more of a point guard badge once again. I would even say really just solely a point guard badge. If you are tired, amped is going to help you shoot through that fatigue. Now the problem with it is that fatigue shooting slows down your jump shot as well. So you have to still be good at that type of stuff as well and still be able to adjust, understand how slow your jump shot's going to be through that fatigue. However, amped is going to let you make those shots more doably. And again, I think it's a lot more of a point guard badge. If you are a big man though, who maybe plays a lot of rec and you run up and down the court a lot, maybe your stamina is low, maybe you don't really buy any Gatorade or anything like that to compensate for your stamina being low, and maybe that's something for you as well. Regardless, if you're someone who shoots while fatigued pretty often, I would definitely recommend this badge at a decent level. You don't have to have this badge though. It's not really like a glue badge. It's not something that is a must. You can definitely still come out here. Like I played on the 1v1 build obviously, and I can create my shots pretty manageably without dribbling a whole lot either. So I didn't really need any amped to shoot the ball by any means. I'm barely draining my stamina when I shoot the ball. And mind you, I shot like 58% from 3 with that build too. But I didn't need this badge at all, but a lot of people by their play style probably do. And if you work really hard to get your shots too, and you can't really find something open very quickly, this is gonna be something that's definitely for you. All right, next up we have clutch shooter, staying in the C tier. This is a specialty badge. It's very specific with when you want to activate it and when it actually does. In case anybody doesn't know, this one is gonna activate in late game situations, aka in park, when it's around like later than 16 points, I believe. Now, this theory has like fluctuated so much through the comments or my opinions as well. To be honest with you, I'm not even sure when it actually activates as far as the score when it comes to park. For Pro-Am though, it's obviously late fourth quarter situations and stuff like that, and it has to be a close game as well. And I think the niche ability of this badge is really what weighs it down. Like you literally can't even utilize it for 70% of the game that you play, maybe even more like 75% in most situations, but that's the problem with it. I mean, you're spending badge points into something that sometimes might not even activate, and it'll only activate when you actually need it to, because maybe you're blowing someone out. This won't even activate all game. And then same with, like I said, if you're in a close game, obviously it's where it's gonna apply, but that's only gonna be less than 25% of the game that it's even being used. And I just don't think that's a good utilization of your badge points personally. Now, the boost on it, as far as the label, when you look at the badge description, says a significant boost. It's the only one in the game that says that. So there's definitely a case to be made for running this badge, 100%. It's just that that case is very specific, and I'm not a huge fan of it for everybody, but if you're someone that prefers this style and you prefer to take those shots late in the game, I'm all for it. And maybe you would rather, like, there's a very specific situation for this style, but maybe you're someone who doesn't prefer to shoot the ball till late in the game when you actually have to, or maybe you're down by multiple possessions and you have to get threes. That's where clutch shooter does come into play pretty effectively, and maybe you're a little bit more of a rim runner before that and you're trying to attack the basket, and then late in the game when clutch shooter can activate, that's when you will look to shoot the ball a little bit more. So that is the very specific situation that this could be really useful for as well. But other than that, it's more of a Pro-Am badge for very specific people that really want to utilize this. Next up, we have blinders staying in the B tier. Now, I do want to backtrack to what I've said in the last 3 videos that we've uploaded for these tier lists for season 2. I'm not going to fluctuate these into something that I feel like they don't belong just for the pop on the YouTube, just to make things interesting. I'm going to put these where I feel like they belong, and I'm never going to just be like, oh, well, blinders, it'd be cool for the video if I put it in A tier, so I'm just going to put it there anyway. No, this is how I feel about the badge. I personally do feel like it's right there in the B. It's a pretty high B tier badge though. If it were to go anywhere between these two right here, it would definitely be leaning more toward A tier than it would be C. It's definitely a high B tier badge. I would probably say it's the best one on this list as well, maybe in contention with one more that we'll talk about later in the video too. But this is obviously going to be for like negating contests from the side, from behind you, all types of stuff like that, your peripherals, so to say. It's not anything directly in front of you like guard up and deadeye would be. And, you know, obviously, like we said, guard up doesn't exactly work either. But again, blinders, more your peripherals and stuff like that too, for crabs, for just obviously shooting with people on your hip, whatever the case may be. It definitely helps. However, the problem is that it still gets contests sometimes, even like from behind you. Like, what I really don't like about this year's game is that crabs aren't very good at all. And I don't like when that's the case. I feel like it's such a skill-based thing for point guards to be able to crab, and it really makes pick and roll work really good too, because when locks play over top of the screen super hard and are fighting through everything, and then the backside defender's not really up high enough on the hedge, it makes them pay so hard, because it makes those lockdowns who are playing extremely high pay for the fact they're doing so, and the point guard can get them stuck behind them with the crab, and then blinders activates and really helps them make that shot. But again, it's still speeding people's jump shots up as if it's a contested shot, even if it says open, and the problem is that it's not wide open in some situations. Now, I understand the real life logic in that. If someone's directly behind you while you're shooting the ball, you're still going to be a little bit affected by it. Obviously, you're like concerned for your landing or something like that. You're worried about your feet, and you're maybe not 100% focused on your jump shot, obviously. But I still think from the game's perspective, I do really like the fact that blinders in the past has really helped with crabs. This year's game, they don't feel so doable or so good. And then on top of that too, it's not something that's game breaking as far as like just anything to do with shooting. However, there is one combination that's really good with this badge, and that is to run Agent 3 and just be like fading like crazy. That is where you will get side contest a whole lot more, and that's where blinders will activate a whole lot more as well. You can still get pretty solid contest. Nonetheless, I do think the contesting in this game is really good. I think the contest system is right where it needs to be besides those crabs and stuff like that too. But either way, I think blinders is a high B tier badge, debatably low A tier, but we'll talk about it when we get there, because I do feel like you'll see when we kind of fill this list in that we don't have a whole lot of badges in these top 2 tiers because they're so good. Next up, we have Midi Magician. This is going to be moving down from the B tier to the C tier. This is going to be really good for post fades and stuff like that. I just don't think many people use this badge or utilize this playstyle very much, where people aren't really doing a whole lot of midi fades, a whole lot of midi crabs, a whole lot of like post fades and stuff like that in general. I think you guys will see when we start to get into this pro-am stuff, the utilization of post hooks and post fades in the 5v5 scene. I'm really looking forward to like really exposing people's lack of defending it. But either way, not many people utilize this. I would love for like a point guard that I play with as well to have a super high mid-range and to utilize their midi magician and stuff like that and be a mid-range fader and stuff like that too, because with me being an inside center and them coming off the screens, if a big man is sitting down in the paint, you can really push them to that baseline mid-range and force them to come out and contest that, because you have so much space between you and the guard who's getting screened to just beat them to that baseline. However, like I said, not many people are utilizing it. Now, if you want to talk about how good the badge is at doing what it's supposed to do, I will say it's so affordable and it's so cheap in the tier system. You only need 81 mid-range to get this on Hall of Fame, and albeit it's generally always going to be a tier 1 badge. So you can get Hall of Fame Mini Magician with only 81 mid-range, and you can get it for only 4 badge points at the Hall of Fame level. So I'm a pretty big fan of the badge personally, but I'm not going to let my bias speak to where I'd put this on the list myself. I do feel like with the lack of people utilizing this badge just in general, it's more of a C tier, but again, it's hard to say, because for 1v1, I wouldn't say this is very like important at all. It's generally going to be all 3-pointers and rim runs. Same with 2v2. It's generally all 3-pointers and rim runs. Maybe you'll run into 1% of the people you play against in this game run some inside big man pick and roll. I don't even think that's the case though. I think just with the common occurrence of playing with a pick and popper, generally the spacing is going to be so good to the point where people just constantly are either going to dunk or shoot threes. Mid-range is kind of a dying breed in this game, and mid-range hinges on inside big mans a whole lot. I really said inside big men. Inside big men, it hinges on a whole lot as far as being able to just rely on the fact that someone's going to get a free board. If you guys have seen the way Annoying plays against Tyson, and all types of stuff like that in the wagers, if you shoot those like midi baseline shots, like the super close midi like fades and stuff, it leads to the freest offensive rebounds you've ever seen because the ball doesn't bounce so extreme. However, when you shoot it from 3, obviously it has really extreme bounces and they can go super far. The middies are very liable to always bounce really short or really close to the rim. But again, that's the problem. Not many people do it because it's not efficient. It's only a 2-point shot. And at the end of the day, why do it if you could just dunk because of good spacing from poppers being all over the court? So it's just a tough thing. It's kind of a dying breed of a badge, but for those who really utilize it, I think it's obviously pretty high in your bag as far as where you would put it on the tier list. But nonetheless, not many people utilize it, so we're moving it down to the C tier. All right, so next up we have 2 badges moving all the way down from the A tier and the B tier down to the D tier. So these are the 2 biggest losers on the list. We have Comeback Kid and Corner Specialist. I overrated Corner Specialist like crazy. Early in the year, I was thinking, oh, this is just kind of something that blocks are going to be utilizing quite often, and same with anybody that's just a corner spotter. Albeit, the badge doesn't actually even work very well. If you've seen 2K Labs test for this, even on the Hall of Fame level, it doesn't even vary as far as their makeability from none to Hall of Fame. Now, I do still believe the utilization can be there. I think it's something that's a little bit hard to test at the same time too. So don't take this like as a word of fact, so to say. corner special could still be more like C tier, B tier, and maybe it's just something under the hood. It's hard to test. It's hard to really know either. A, because I don't really shoot any corner shots either, if that matters, so it's just not my expertise. And B, it's just tough to really tell if the badge works or not, because all you do is green or you don't green. So the only thing you can tell about it is, am I greening easier? But at the end of the day, that's kind of timing based too. So it's hard to judge something like that, but I'm just going to take 2K Labs' word for it and just assume that this is more of a D tier badge. Again, I do apologize. I don't have great expertise on this myself. If I shoot the ball, it's from like one of those top 3 hot zones from wing to top to wing. But again, the test they ran, pretty sad as far as corner specialists, just ability to make shots in the corner. But nonetheless, there are a couple, hint to Claymore, that do deal with the spot up shooting pretty well. Anyway, moving along, we have Comeback Kid. This is moving down from the B tier to the D tier, like we said. This I opened my eyes to off the fact that it's not even activating until late in the game itself as well. I was under the impression that Comeback Kid was going to activate anytime you are down in a game, aka if you were down 2-0, that Comeback Kid would just activate, which would be crazy for that matter too, which is probably a good idea that they didn't make that the case. Or maybe what I would like from them is maybe for it to not just be an overpowered badge by any means, maybe just slightly boost your shooting ability, and you can always be down and just be down 2-0 and it'll still activate, but that's not the case. So when Kitchen was playing with this and he was able to tell me when it started to activate for him, it only started working at like 15 points. Same thing as Clutch Shooter. So I don't know, really stupid, honestly. Like, I just really hate that for Comeback Kid, because I thought it was such a cool idea of a badge. Could be such a really cool thing for like the new factor to it too, where this has never really been a thing in the game. Obviously things like Clutch Shooter, but there's never been something like Comeback Kid. Maybe back in 2K17, I think there was something like this as far as one of those park badges, but either way, I really feel bad about this badge, kind of the same way I feel about Corner Specialist too. It's just tough, man. Same with Guard Up. D tier is like the gravestone. It's the tomb for all of the shooting badges that just, I wish worked well, but they just don't. So that's my opinions on that. Alright, so lots of badges that move from the left to the right in this little cut that we had right here. And as you can see, they're all ones that were formerly in the A tier or the S tier for Season 1. So we have Catch and Shoot, Claymore, Deadeye, and Green Machine, all moving down from S or A down to B. Let's start with the most, biggest loser so far out of those badges that have dropped. Green Machine moving down from S to B. I want to talk about this because, honestly, the problem with this is, yes, you do have to green every shot in this game for it to go in, nearly. I would say only like 1% or 2% of the shots that I've seen go in this game are whites, and that's excluding the dunk meter or the layups, obviously, but obviously jump shots. Green Machine, it is still going to be good to utilize. I do recommend to have this on your build if you do shoot the ball pretty often, but you have to get at least 2 greens to go in before this badge even starts doing something for you. So my biggest issue with it is that and then when you break the chain too, so let's say you green 2 shots, boom, now Green Machine's going to start working for you, but maybe you get a spike when you shoot the ball, or maybe you just miss entirely. Now you have to reset that chain all over again, and by that point, I don't know if you're really shooting 4 3-pointers in a game, to be honest with you. Maybe if you're a point guard, like I said, but for corner spot ups, for pick and poppers, stuff like that, I just don't think that this badge really is utilizable enough to be something that you're going to feel like you're getting a lot out of personally. Now, if it were something where you only have to green 1 shot and then it starts putting in work for you, I think that would be so much more doable and so much more reliable. And obviously the fact that only greens go in this game, that'd be so important, and Green Machine would go a long way. But in my opinion, with how tedious it is to just get those 2 greens to go and then to still even rely on the fact that maybe you even get a 3rd shot in general throughout the course of the game, that's still something that's not a given, to be honest. I mean, it's hard to say because obviously the reason you put on shooting badges is to shoot the ball, but there's no telling that you actually take 3 to 4 to 5 jump shots in a game. For Pro-Am, I would make the case for this way harder, but the problem with Pro-Am is it's harder to be efficient. If you're a point guard, it's going to be tough for you to go 7 for 7 or 8 for 8 from 3, and when you break that chain, like I said, you're going to have to get started all over again because it's not something that just keeps on going. Whereas Volume Shooter is something where it's going to keep on going regardless of you making or missing. So it's tough to say. Like, these are 2 badges that are probably a lot closer in the tiers than they actually show. Volume Shooter being a pretty good C tier badge, and Green Machine probably being a pretty bad B tier, if we're being completely honest. So I feel like I overestimated and overrated this badge a little bit just off the fact that I just assumed that, I don't know why I even did this either, but just off the fact that I assumed that maybe this would be something because greens only go in that you just really would want this badge. But the truth to it is you can green without it, and it's really just going to take a long time for you to even be able to start utilizing it. So definitely moving down from the S tier to the B tier. Next up, let's talk about catch and shoot. So this is going to be one that actually does work, at least, and can obviously be used in multiple different areas, whether it's corner spot up, whether it's pick and pop, whether it's literally just flaring off a like off ball screen or moving around on the wing and you catch and shoot. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's always been the most self-explanatory badge in all of 2K probably. You catch, you shoot. It boosts your shot. As simple as that. So obviously there's not a whole lot to talk about right there. It's going to be moving down from the A tier to the B tier though, just because I don't feel like it's on either of these two badges levels that are going to be in the A and S tier. So that's my personal opinion. I just think it needs to be separated a little bit from A and S tier because it doesn't really belong up there with them. So moving along, we have Deadeye. This is going to be kind of the same thing as Blinders, but not really at all. Obviously, they're both to help you shoot contested, but this one more for people directly in your face rather than the peripherals like Blinders is. So Deadeye, I think low-key is a little bit better than Blinders. It just depends on your playstyle. If you're a very like ISO and kind of downhill ISOer, where you're doing a lot of hopbacks and rim runs and maybe stop and goes and stuff like that, Deadeye is probably a little bit more important for you. Whereas if you're a fading point guard coming off screens and stuff like that, Blinders is probably a little bit more important for you. Now, it's very hard to equip both these badges. They're both generally tier 3, no matter what. Now, for like 6'11" and taller, I believe, gets Blinders in tier 2. Anything below that though, like 6'10" and below, Blinders is tier 3, and that's obviously pretty expensive, and Deadeye always stays in tier 3 as well. So definitely tough to run both these badges at the same time with the badge budgeting and stuff like that. For point guards, it's going to be so much more important to run these two badges on the left over here. But if you are maybe a spot up, Deadeye goes a much longer way than Blinders. It's just tough to say though. If you're someone that obviously, like I said, is doing a lot of fading, or maybe you do a lot of like fancy stuff out the corner, you do midi fades out the corner and stuff like that too. It's hard to say, man. I really do think though, as a spot up, Deadeye goes a much longer way than Blinders. Blinders is gonna be a little bit tougher to activate unless it's rotations and stuff like that for Pro-Am, but also kind of tough to say because most of it is probably fake help that just ends up with you getting jump contested, and Deadeye is gonna be what really comes into play a little bit more. So on that note too of the corner specialist, we have Claymore, which is low-key sport, like actually what you would want corner specialist to be. So this one can still be utilized in other areas. It's very unlikely though that on the wing or anywhere on pick and pops and stuff like that, you're gonna just be standing still for very long amounts of time. Claymore is the longer you stand stationary, the more your shot gets boosted, up to, I believe Mike Wang said 4 or 5 seconds, something like that is the maximum boost you can receive for this. So obviously being in the corner, that's where you utilize this badge the most, where if you just stand still, then you know, it's pretty easy to not move out the corner. You don't have to like cut all over the place and stuff like that. You can just kind of stand still, wait there, let your Claymore brew. Maybe you run corner specialist and you believe in it. Maybe you run catch and shoot. All this stuff goes a long way. To run Deadeye, maybe some green machine, something like that as well. Maybe some clutch shooter. I don't know. Obviously, when it comes to the corner spot ups, you're probably not running things like volume shooter. Maybe you run some space creator as well if you're someone that's coming out the corner. My boy Joey does it as well on his like 6'11", 7-footer that has really good mid-range. Also, I do apologize. I believe we didn't talk about space creator. So let me come back to that real quick after we talk about Claymore, because we've now talked about all of the B tier badges. So yeah, Claymore, pretty much just a corner spot up badge. I didn't realize we were pretty much already done talking about it. So my apologies. We'll come back to Space Creator. This is going to be a badge that's very utilizable as far as people that like it. Now, you have to be very specific with your kind of style, your niche. I think this is obviously more to do with like hop back jump shots, aka hop jumpers, and that stuff is crazy, man. I really do think Space Creator is actually kind of nuts. And if you're someone who's already doing the Agent 3 type stuff where you're fading from 3 pretty often, to utilize Space Creator as well and do those hop back 3s and the spin jumpers and stuff like that, it's so good. And obviously this also breaks people too. So not only does it help you make the shot, but it also helps break defenders as well. And it really can be crazy, man. I mean, if you run the ankle breaking shots as well for the shot creator takeover compared with Space Creator, it's really good. It's just, I feel like once again, it's a very niche like community of people that do it, and it's a very like just kind of extinct style, so to say. But them dudes like Ticino, this goes a long way for sure. Alright, so for our last two badges, we have Limitless Range coming in at the A tier, and then we have Agent 3 all alone in the S tier. So as you can see, there were a lot of A tiers originally. We had 4 of them, and then we had 3 S tiers as well. We trimmed this down to 1 apiece. I just really do think these two badges are on another level, and Agent 3 is on another level where it's so much higher than everything else. We'll get to that in a second. Obviously, we're going to go in just the order. So Limitless Range being one that's also going to help you in just any situation, ISO, or especially from pick and roll. Pick and roll, 100%, like most important. But then on top of that too, I want to talk about the ISO style. So let's say you're someone that does a lot of hop backs, rim runs, all types of stuff like that. when you do a hop back and you have no limitless range, it's very clear that you're only going to do it from that like kind of mid-range area where it hops you back to the edge of the three-point line. And that's so predictable. It's so easy to defend as a defender because you know when someone does that hop back and they're 2 feet off the three-point line, you know absolutely super well that they're just looking for that three-pointer because they are just hugging that three-point line. Now, when you can do that from super far away, aka when you can be hugging the three-point line already and be a threat from shooting, then when you do that hop back from a stationary point, then you can still shoot the ball from there. That becomes a problem because now you have to jump out and contest stuff like that. Same with hezzies or just moving step backs and stuff like that. It becomes such a problem to defend because when you can shoot from so far, it gives you so much more room to work with those drives, and you have to just like really believe in their three-pointer a whole lot more. So not only that, but let's get into the pick and roll aspect of it as well. The range that you have off of screens to shoot the ball goes such a long way in terms of opening up your pick and roller or your drive lanes as well. Because once again, like I said, the farther the defense has to come out to defend you, or the wider they have to play on the screen, the easier it is to get your big man involved on the slips, or the easier it is for you to get your drives and your rim runs because they have to respect your three-pointer so high. So that goes a long way. I think gold limitless range is what a lot of people utilize in this game. It's really rare they have anything less than silver, or if they do have anything less than silver, it's probably just them being a spot up, and it's rare that anybody really runs bronze limitless range, to be honest. So, and it's extremely rare that they run Hall of Fame too. So just keep that in mind. It's probably more of a gold limitless range sort of deal. It'd be really hard to be a point guard out here in this year's game with 99 three-pointer Hall of Fame limitless because that just really deteriorates a build really bad. But anyway, moving along to the Agent 3. This is a badge that literally does everything, bro. I'm talking quick stops, anything standstill three-pointer as long as you have already dribbled the ball, fading threes, all types of stuff like that. And the fading three aspect of it goes a long way. So honestly, Agent 3, it's probably one of the best badges in the game. Debatably the best badge in the game, maybe second to glove. But for this badge, I'm talking literally anything. Me on the 1v1 court, I have this little combo I do. I do this like triple threat spin into hop back, and off the hop back, it works. Off quick stops, it works. Off fading, it works. Off literally any jump shot other than a catch and shoot, it activates and gives you a huge boost to your shooting. And to talk about the fading as well, with the fact that quick stops aren't really that good this year, I think fading is more and more important every single year, and it just is the truth. Like, you have to be able to utilize your fades to be able to get open jump shots off screens. The only way you don't really have to utilize fades is if you're very open to the drives, if you play with pick and pop spacing and stuff like that. And like I said, it's kind of the same thing as Midi Magician, where it's so convenient to be able to just hit that fade and just get away from the defense and get a shot off, but obviously it's at the efficient rate of getting a three-pointer instead of a 2. So Agent 3, really good badge, absolute S tier. It's probably like a top 2, top 3 badge in all of 2K. I would say quick first step, glove, and Agent 3 are probably your top 3 badges, like 100%. Anyway, that's all for the video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, drop a like, sub if you're new, turn on noties, all that good stuff. Like always, try to want 2,000 likes. And if you made it to the end of the video, put green or put shot in the comments to support me all the way through. And also feel free to leave any feedback. Let me know if you think I missed anything. Let me know if you think I misjudged a badge. Let me know if, for instance, you think corner specialist is actually good. I really am going off of 2K Labs with this one right here because I saw the test and I'm like, wow, that's unbelievably bad. Like, that's horrible feedback right there, where it gives like no increase at all from nothing to Hall of Fame. But again, feel free to give me any feedback. You could even be someone to tell me that guard up works. I'm gonna just really disbelieve you 100%, but feel free to leave in the comments and let me know if you're a fan of like volume shooter, clutch shooter. Obviously, if you're one of the people who use Space Creator, if you think Green Machine is something that's really utilizable, whatever your case may be, feel free to leave it in the comments. Just give some feedback, respectful feedback, please. I ask that of you guys, but anyway, that's all for the video. Also, let me know if you guys want to see the takeover tier list video or the takeover perk tier list video. I didn't even make one for season 1 and I still haven't made one for season 2. I think it'd be something good to update you guys on. I have a lot of really good like formed opinions with it. It's just some people don't utilize certain takeovers or like certain takeover perks either. I think the takeover perks one, I'm probably more clear in the head as far as which ones are good than the takeovers, because the takeovers I feel like are very hard to tell what opponents are using. And obviously when it comes to like my own utilization of them, I can't really test everything either. So I don't know. Let me know if you guys want to see that stuff as well. I could at least give my opinions on it. But either way, that's all for the video. Hope y'all enjoyed. Done that. Titties, man. Peace.